Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash. This is AshQuest, equipped with a new telephoto lens to show you the finest details of monsters, mimics, and mysteries from under Dusk Miniatures. This is a selection of 34 tabletop gaming miniatures with no repeats, and we're about to see, will it HeroQuest? I think that's all I wanted to do with the telephoto lens because the wider lens gives me so much more. You don't care about that. Anyway, we'll open up the box. We have a lovely card from Underdusk to unravel the mysteries of these heroes. Scan the mystical rune below. This will take you to underduskminis.com, but it's also worth noting that all of the miniatures that are in an Underdusk Miniatures box, or at least to date, all of them, have their own D&D 5e stat sheet, their own kind of backdrop and character attributes that you can play with when you introduce them into your game. You don't actually have to use your own imagination if you don't want to or don't have one. AshQuest videos are always sponsored by Imagination. Find Imagination, sold at better brains near you. A little bit of information about Underdusk, which is comprised of Jen and Ethan. Hark, adventurers, perhaps your valiant band of miniatures suffered an attack in transit. Fear not, we can revive your minis in our tinkering shop, or you may choose to have your pierces reimbursed with coin. Either way, let us know and we'll be happy to take care of ye. I like that, that's really nice, and the same promise is mentioned on their Amazon page. Before we really dig into this, I want to give a huge thank you to Underdusk Miniatures for gifting me the purchase of Monsters, Mimics, and Mysteries for this video. But we'll change angles once again just to confuse and enrage you, and we'll see what makes Underdusk so great. Now, as I am wont to do, we're going to talk just a teensy bit about scale, because it's important to some gamers that their scales all match. A lot of games have their own scales that they work in. The scale just represents the relative sizes of things within that game's sort of universe, whether you are playing HeroQuest, Altar Quest, Dungeon Quest, New Quest, whatever game you're playing. And for HeroQuest, we work with a scale that is basically 32mm heroic, with the heads and hands and feet given exaggerated proportions so that we can spot these features more easily from the 1 meter away that we might be at the game table. This does not mean that all of your characters are going to be the same size. The 32mm is the average human from toe to eye. Some places revert to this exact same size as 35mm, which is from bottom of foot to top of head, but that's for average humans. So your larger humans and your monsters and your goblins are all going to be relative to that size, not the same as that size in those games. And I like to talk about scale a lot because it's still a topic that is somewhat confusing to new people who are entering the hobby or people who are getting into HeroQuest and asking about all these different monsters that can come into play. And I kind of like to use it as a disclaimer. However, you can definitely take a bunch of miniatures from a different game or set or series and mix them in with games of opposing scales to say that the creatures are natively that size in the game to which you are adapting. For example, we'll just go ahead and open up one of these bags of Chaotic Encounter minis, which I bring this up because these are not 32mm scale. They're a bit smaller. They're probably 25 to 28. So here is pretty much your average human. You've got well, this isn't a human at all. Actually, it's pretty hard for me to find a human in all of this. Pretty much your average human is going to be about this big. Here you've got a fully armored character. Here you've got a character holding up a skull for a sacrifice, or perhaps some sort of ritualistic dance, or perhaps they just found that their boyfriend was caught smooching the local witch down the road, and this is the skull of their boyfriend. Whoops, things got a little bit dark there. They match each other together because they're from the same set. But when you put these up against HeroQuest minis, you're going to notice a huge difference, not just in body size, which would be completely normal, but like head size and other features that should be the same across different miniatures of the same line. So you can use some of them because it'll still make sense. Like your owlbear here, he's not massive. He's just a small owlbear. And as long as you want to say that it's a small owlbear, you're perfectly in line to do that. We have this crazy wingless rock bird type creature among these stalagmites, and you can say that this creature is in line with the HeroQuest scale because it just doesn't really need to have a standard size. It's fine whatever size, whatever game you want to put it in. So with all of that done, let's take a look at all of the miniatures that come with Chaotic Encounters. There are 64 in this set, but what we're really looking at here is 4 unique sculpts and then 60 sculpts that are actually 3 copies of 20 different sculpts across 3 different colors. So we have our classic gray, we have a really nice neutral subtle blue, and then we have this lovely sort of bronze-ish copperish color that I think some manufacturers refer to as, is it sundrop or sunset, something like that. This actually might be a different color than that even, but I actually think that this is a super nice color to cast your miniatures in. So you have basically the makings of 3 factions here, and they all have the same sculpts across these 3 factions, with our unique ones, our 4 unique ones, being off to the side, and I'll show those in just a minute. We'll go ahead and dump these blue ones out, and now I want to show you the color difference between the same sculpt. This is the same creature across 3 different sculpts, blue, gray, and tan, I'll say, just to shorthand it. So for chaotic encounters, I would say lots of really good details added into the sculpts. The sculptor did a really good job on most of these. On some of them, it's a little bit different. Same sculptor, but the details will be a little bit different here and there. That's going to have to do with the cost of the molds and having to compromise with how much funding they got to produce these miniatures and how much detail they had to lose to get a cheaper mold. But I can imagine that the further this line goes on, the better the details will be and the better the skill of the sculptor to be able to make bolder choices within their chosen miniatures. So we have dwarf with hammer, and this is a very realistic looking dwarf, although the hammer he's wielding is certainly not realistic. This is a pretty cool miniature to put into your games. You can use these with any non-heroic scale game and they'll fit right in, like the D&D WizKids games. I think they would do perfectly with those. We have flying giant skull, flaming. This would be an awesome I was gonna say skeleton skill or spell. There we go. A spell. Mage could cast giant flaming skull, and it's just gonna fly across the room until it explodes against a wall, or perhaps it will chase down monsters until it hits them, maybe even repeatedly. Happen to be a big fan of that one. We have what I assume is a female mind flayer. You don't see very many female coded mind flayers. Whoops. And I just flicked her across the room. Wow, very disrespectful, Ash. We have giant spider, arachnophobia warning. It's too late. We have the aforementioned crazy crystal demon. I said bird earlier. I don't know if chin or if beak. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, kind of looks like it could be a chin, and then there's a row of teeth right above it. You could probably paint that up to be whatever you like, though. I've been playing a lot of FromSoft games, so of course I'm going to imagine some sort of crazy wingless apparition. We'll switch it up, go to a different material. We have this lovely princess, or queen, actually. She seems very regal. Crown in place. Dress becoming what? You decide. Spikes? Rocky spikes? Stalagmites of some kind? Perhaps she is icy. Perhaps this is just crystal of power. Could be blades that were used to try to slay her. Previous warriors who have failed and died horribly in the attempt. You've got 3 different colors of her, so whatever you choose. Yeah, all these sculpts that I'm showing you, you've got all 3 of these colors cast for them. So you have really the opportunity to have 3 spiders in your game. And you can use this fact however you want. You can use the included sheets to give you the stats for them in your 5e game. You can go ahead and say that a gold spider is lucky, a gray spider is on your team, a blue spider is the enemy. These could represent strengths of different enemies. So if you are coming up against a gray spider, that's the weakest, blue's a little bit stronger, gold is strongest, or you could work that backwards or sideways if you wish. You could use them as sort of like hit point or body point or wound marker trackers in some way, where if you hit the gold spider, no longer is he at full health, now he is blue, which means medium health or has been hit. Hit him again, he'll turn gray. You could even have a monster that changes colors mid-battle during a phase shift to denote to the heroes it's about to do something big for its next attack, or it's impervious to all of a certain kind of attack. The sky is really the limit. I really like when manufacturers have different colors of the same sculpts. Moving on, we have an elephant man. This is unusual. You don't see very many of these guys. Elephant people. I like it, and I actually like the tusks here. The inclusion of the tusks was a really cool choice, I think. I like the choice of weapon too. I think a hammer makes sense. Details on all of these are really good so far. I think that these have more detail, or better choices of detail rather, than the Mimics, Monsters, or Monsters, Mimics, and Mysteries pack. Also from Dusk Miniatures, we have a cat person with a pair of axes here, and there's a cat person with a sword or a pair of swords in that other pack, and this one just looks a lot cooler. It looks a lot better. We have this Very interesting looking simian rock monster, an elemental no doubt, or perhaps something that can be summoned as a pet. There you go. Another use for the colors. One is the pet color for the heroes, and the other one's the monster. Would you like to add Lamia to your campaign? Snake ladies here to coil you up, and that's going to get weird fast. A lot of these miniatures go really well on the 1-inch grid standard tiles for your board game. There are really not that many that like extend out, and if they do, it's not very egregious. It's not any worse than like the abominations or the chaos or dread knights rather of, say, HeroQuest. But that's if you're going to be using it with this 1-inch grid system. This is fairly standard, fairly common, so I do have the 1-inch grid as my backdrop. Pretty much useful in every video where I need to review assets. We have a regular human, or perhaps it's a Northman. It's somebody very tall. He could be made of stone. He could be made of another element. It's your choice. You get to color him, or you get to decide in your world why he's so big, why he's wielding this giant hammer. Could very well just be a human too, just a Norseman though. And again, we talk about scale. The features are different enough where this one might actually fit in your game and be fine. He does have smaller hands, almost comically so. He's more serious looking. That's the advantage of the non-heroic scale. More serious looking miniatures. That said, you might lose a little bit of charm, but who needs charm when you have literally death? You can see the details of the skull underneath the hood. You see the folds in the robe, the cloak rather, the scythe. There's very little cleanup to do on these, if any. Most of them don't have any cleanup at all. I can see just a teensy bit. I almost said none of them have any cleanup, and that was just going to be that. But I see a teensy bit of mold line if you're going to be super picky. I'm not. I would just spray paint this guy with a primer and start painting. Showed these guys off earlier. Full suited knight with double-ended axe. You don't see that very often. Very juggernaut-like. And then a satyr with a lute of some kind, not going into focus, which is just like you, Mr. Satyr. Classic Satyr, not coming into focus. He's even got a little tail on the end, just in case you were wondering. Yeah, I don't know why you would, but there you go. I showed this queen off earlier, but I want to show her off again because I happen to really like this sculpt. I think that this one's really cool. So to show her in the other colors, yeah, I think that adds value. Death comes in many forms, and now in this beautiful tan. Here's an impish fellow that I happen to really like. Yeah. That's all I've got to say about him. He's cool. He could be an NPC, he could be a villain, he could be a misguided hero, he could be a sort of like a summonable who comes and offers you deals, and whether you take that deal or not, that's up to you. We have, and I'm going to protect him with my life, this very froggish little thing who is carrying I don't know what, but he's going to protect it, and I'm going to help him. Got a little crossbow. Love this character. You get 3, 1 in each color, obviously. Our aforementioned sacrifice person, Yorick. I thought I knew him. I thought I knew Yorick. You think you know Yorick until you catch him sneaking out at 3 a.m., going down to the local atelier, ordering love potion number 9 from that hussy. All right, I mentioned that we had unique miniatures. And these miniatures are going to vibe very well with whatever game system you want to put them in. They've got oversized bases, they're pretty large miniatures, they're big boss types. We have here, well, what would you call this? This looks like an eldritch horror from the woods, something that a lot of people have claimed to cite, but none of them actually have any evidence of prowling through the nearby forest. We've got antlers, we've got a mask, we've got clawed hands. This creature could be made of flora, but be fauna also. I like him. He's going to take up a 2x2 spot on your board easily. And then we have a ruler of the undead. This guy is absolutely disgusting. He's definitely been blessed or tainted, I suppose, by Nurgle in some way. There's an extra set of arms coming out of his stomach, giant tongue coming out of his belly as well. He has some sort of affliction with which he is afflicted, growing out of his shoulder, the side of his neck. He lived a gluttonous life, but now something is eating away at him. Perhaps he needs to continue consuming others to finish whatever horrible transformation he's undergoing. We're almost done. We've got 2 more. This one is an elemental in a very dynamic pose, rising up from the flames. What color are the flames? You get to decide that. What is this material on his shoulders? You get to decide that as well. We have a slightly draconic face. It's dragon coated. There are fireballs or perhaps some other element of power in hands, ready to throw. Really like that miniature a lot. He's only going to take up a 1x2 on your board and yet have all of this power. And finally, the big bad, the coup de grace. The real treasure of this is the Hydra. We have a very dinosaur-inspired body with the fin, it's like a Diplodocus fin, and that looks really cool. It feels really cool too. It's very spiny, spiky, nice and rigid. These miniatures here in this pack are made of a pretty cool material, I think. Don't be too rough with them. Don't bend them up too much. Use the hot water trick to get them back into place if they happen to be bent up. But this guy, really thick all around. Textured body. I appreciate that a lot. We have 5 heads, 5 draconic heads that you could go ahead and paint up any way you like to reflect different perhaps elements or breeds, or you could just make them all the same. Maybe you could have different wounds in each of the neck that kind of indicate how that particular head was struck down, but when it was just 1 head before it came back as 3, because you'd have to strike one of the heads to get 3 that come back, and then another head to get, wait, no. If it had 1 and you struck it, it would grow back 3, then you would strike that and it would grow back 3, and then you'd have 5. So 2 of these heads, I guess, could have wounds on them, because, you know, it's not logical. Don't worry about it. He's going to take up pretty much an entire room, or perhaps a 2x5. You could go a little different. You could make room for the tail, or you could just angle him appropriately. But that is the Chaotic Encounters collection from Under Dusk Miniatures. Again, pretty appreciative of the different colors in which these are cast. I think that that's a good choice. I think it's always good if you can add a lot of value to a pack by really just eliminating further like development and sculpting and just tripling the manufacturing, and then boom, you've got 3 factions. This could end up being really, really valuable to somebody. I do wish that we could see a collection that had more copies in it. I'm not talking like 5 different colors of one, but I mean like, oh, I totally missed this wolf. I totally missed the wolf. It's a good thing I had a little bit of a epilogue there. Yes, we have a wolf. The wolf is a 1-tiler, easily. Very easy to place him down. Extends beyond the borders of the tile just a little bit, but you could paint this guy up and he'd be adorable. He's a lovely little wolf. I like him a lot, actually. Yeah, these guys I appreciate. I think some of them, like the more mob type monsters, I would like to have 3 in the same color. And then, you know, a total of 9 if you were still going to have different colors. But I suppose if you wanted to, you could paint them all the same color and then you'd have your 3. But then that would rob me of having my 9. Now, I think as far as collections of unique monsters go, this is a pretty good choice. I will put a link in the description below. I'm not going to get any revenue or anything like that from showing these guys off, but I did order these guys and I was reimbursed for my order. And I wanted to give you my honest opinion, honest review of them, as is my intention, as is what I do, how I do. If you're using Nolzur's miniatures, I would say that these have more charm than that. I absolutely detest Nolzur's Dungeons & Dragons miniatures. I think that whole line is just rubbish. That's just me. I'm kind of gatekeeping when I say that, I realize. But I will actually throw the creator of these a huge bone and say, these are better. They're better. They're just better. You may wish for a little bit more detail, perhaps, on some of them, but I actually really like this particular collection in Chaotic Encounters. Others, you might just like disagree with the presentation of a particular monster or not like the style. That's a choice. That really doesn't have much to do with the quality of things. That's just an aesthetic choice, and that's fine to have too. Anyway, I've got a mess to clean up here. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, you must have liked it, so please hit that like button to help me out, and comment your favorite sculpt down below, and I will see you in the next exciting adventure. Until then, brave heroes, bye for now.